Hello, everyone. Just make sure we give it a couple of seconds here so that everybody's got their uh, sound sorted out. Feel free to please put your cameras on if you're comfortable, or if you'd prefer to have them off, that's okay too. We have started recording this session and we're just going to get right into it. So I want to welcome everyone to today's Mentorability Industry Information session. Today we are with Steve Bethel of ACI Architecture, Inc., and we're really excited for this conversation. My name is Jamie Thiessen, and my pronouns are they, them, and I am the project lead for mentorability in Northern Alberta. So I'm based out of Edmonton, and then my colleague Susanna is here as well, and she is based in Calgary. So we're going to be sort of running the session, answering questions. If you have any tech issues, feel free to reach out to either of us. And yeah, we'll get started here. So a little bit about mentorability. It's part of a national initiative that facilitates short-term mentorship matches for people who experience pan disability. And it's for folks who want to learn a little bit about an industry that they might be interested in, make some of those networking connections, and answer those questions about like what is a day in the life of really like, and so that we can help provide more opportunities for people to learn about industry and work with employers to increase their capacity and confidence in hiring people with disabilities so that there's just more opportunities for everyone involved. Just going to go next screen to our land acknowledgement. So with this, we acknowledge that mentorability operates on the traditional territories of Indigenous peoples in what is colonially called Alberta. As I said, I am located in Edmonton, or Amiskwaciwâskagen, and Susanna is in Calgary, also known as Mohkinstsis. And we express gratitude and respect for the land that we use. On our decolonial journey, we pledge to dismantle systemic racism within our organization and commit to advancing reconciliation and equitable partnerships as we continue to engage predominantly in treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories and the Métis homeland. We recognize that acknowledgement of traditional land is a start, but what is being asked for by Indigenous communities is land back. And just a few housekeeping before we get started. If you are not currently speaking, please have yourself muted. That just keeps background noise and allows everybody to better focus. If you have questions, feel free to put your hand up or put them in the chat and we'll make sure that they get addressed. Steve is welcoming questions throughout the presentation, so you don't have to wait for the end. You can, just pop your hand up at any time or put it in the chat. And we do have access to closed captioning, so if you require that at all and you need a little assistance with that, just let myself or Susanna know. All right, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here and pass it over to Steve. So welcome, Steve, and take it away.
All right, hi everybody. This is going to be pretty informal, so like Jamie said, if you have questions, throw them out there. We're just going to talk about architecture, the industry, and my office more specifically, which is ACI Architecture. I've been in the architectural industry for almost 18 years. 7 of them have been here with ACI, and almost 10 of them have been using Revit, which is our new 3D program, which is pretty much an industry standard. It's moving away from AutoCAD and 2D drawings to fully 3D models and renders and stuff like that. So I graduated from SAIT, grew up in a small town just outside of Calgary. So went to SAIT, moved to Edmonton, found my first office here. I've been lucky enough to work on some pretty major projects. Commonwealth seat replacement, Rogers Arena, the Edmonton Public Library, rec centers across Alberta, Blackfalds, Anzac, Conklin, Edmonton. ACI works on a range of projects. We go from anywhere from $200,000 projects up to $40 million rec centers and arenas. We do pretty much everything except residential. So we don't do houses and stuff like that, but we do strip malls, we do schools, protective services, which include police and fire, government buildings, swimming pools, pretty much everything we've got our hands in. So in our office, you get a good range of things you want to work on. So you don't get, I'd say you won't get bored of what you work on in a place like this. And that's pretty typical for most architectural firms, I would say. You get a pretty vast portfolio. It's the best way to stay competitive in the market. So you can silo yourself and be really good at it, or you can build a decent sized firm and be good at a lot of things. So just depends on what you're looking for. I've worked in both less than 50 people offices and some of the huge firms. Personally, I like the smaller firms. You get more of a sense of pride and ownership of your projects. You're not just a number in a cog in a huge machine. So I find that's a little better on the smaller side, the more private companies. 2 out of the 3 of my companies have been small private ones. So that's been my experience, and I find it a lot more fulfilling. So in my office, me specifically, I am the BIM director, which means I am in charge of the program we use, the 3D renderings we use, the graphic standards, the drafting standards, everything that goes into our drawings, I have a hand in. I don't specifically work on 1 or 2 projects. I kind of have a hand in all of them. And currently, I think we're over 100 projects this year, so it gets busy. But yeah, I guess if you were starting out in the industry, what you would become is, if you're starting just as a drafter, you'd be an architectural technologist. And that would basically, you're drawing the drawings that the contractors use to build from. So if with our new program, you're building the entire model in 3D, you have to lay out the buildings and the rooms and the dimensions and all the notes. You would be working on the construction details to show the contractors how to build something. Not by yourself, obviously. You'd be a part of a team, or you'd have some oversight from senior tech or a project manager. But as a junior draftsperson, you would come in and draw. That is basically your day would be anywhere from 3 to 7 different projects. You'd be expected to manage your time accordingly to hit your deadlines and hit your milestones. And as you work up, you might get involved in more of the meetings, talking to clients, talking to consultants, trying to work on that coordination, making sure there's not a structural column inside your door, or make sure the mechanical system's not running into structure, or there's so many complexities to a building that the deeper you get into it, the more stuff you have to watch out for and make sure everyone's, as the architectural team, you are what's called the prime consultant. So typically the client would hire us and we would pick our consultant team. So that's structural, mechanical, electrical. Sometimes we'll have civil if there's outside work. We'd have landscaping as well. So it's our job as prime to make sure they're all following our standards, make sure they're incorporating everything the client's looking for. We're kind of the big boss on the projects. So everything comes through us, everything goes through us. Communications to and from the client are through us, to and from the consultants are through us. So as you work up, you'll go from just drafting on the job with someone telling you what to do to meetings and even site visits and making sure contractors doing their job properly. There's different paths you can take. So I started as a technologist, just drafting. I've worked up. I took a step into contract admin and site visits and stuff like that. I didn't like that as much. I preferred the drawing and the drafting and figuring out the problems and trying to fix the problems. So I kind of sidestepped and went into my current role, which is working with the program, working with the techs, trying to figure out the details, trying to fix the problems. So our biggest thing is we're problem solvers. If the client wants something or the contractor can't figure out something, it's our job to take all the information and decide how we can incorporate it to make it work while still having a building that looks nice, having a building that functions for what the client needs it to be. We'll engage with the end user who isn't always the client. For example, our client might be Alberta Health Services, but we would go and we'd meet with whoever is in, say we're fixing up a lab, a medical lab. We go and we talk to the techs who are there in that lab, ask them what they need, ask them what they would like to see and what their workflow is so that we can space plan and have something that works for the actual people who are in the space rather than just what the client needs or thinks they need, because that's not always the same thing. Your client might not be involved in the day-to-day of whatever the project might be. So that all falls on us as the architect and as the prime. For our office and a lot of offices, we have multiple positions. We have the techs who do the drafting. Our office also has an interior design team. We have 7 interior designers. We also have intern architects. So currently we have 3 intern architects who are in their practicum phase of getting their hours to become an architect. Our office right now has like 9 or 10 fully accredited architects. So the architects and the interns are the ones who do the majority of the design work. They'll work closely with the client at the beginning of the project and come up with a initial design for layout and space planning, finishes, all that before it comes down to the techs who work on the actual construction docs that the contractor gets. After the drafting phase, it goes into construction, which then goes to a contract administrator and their team, who basically ensures that the contractor is building everything as per the contract. So that's the physical legal contract and our documents and our drawings that are part of the legal contract. So their job is to stick with the contractor the entire construction phase to make sure everything's done correctly and to code and to the client's expectations and to our expectations. And then we also have smaller overhead positions. We have an office administrator, we have office assistants, we have an IT department with 50 people on computers running a pretty high performance program. You need people with a little IT experience to help us out when things come crashing down. Yeah, so a typical day could be a lot of things. My firm is really good as a teaching firm. So even the junior staff who at some offices might not get to ever leave the office, we'll take them out on site every once in a while and explain to them, because we find it's a much better, if you're sitting and drawing stuff all day, you're never really going to understand what's happening. So when we take them out on site, You can get a visualization of what you've drawn and why it's been drawn a certain way, or maybe the contractor changed it and they will give you the reasons why. So you can take that knowledge back, and next time you do that detail or that problem, you'd remember that and address it in a different way. So we find it very beneficial to take juniors out on site whenever we can, time permitting and deadline permitting. But yeah, so depending on your role, a whole bunch of things can happen during a day. We have meetings, we have phone calls, we have site visits, we have a meeting here in the office in the next hour for cake. So the whole office stops and we go and have cake and celebrate for all the birthdays in the month. We try to keep it pretty lighthearted in our office. We work hard, but we also play hard. So we like to reward our teams for the hard work and extra dedication sometimes it takes to get these deadlines met. Sometimes clients are getting more and more, they want faster deadlines and faster deliverables. So we try to meet those while also pushing back, because sometimes it's a little unreasonable, but we do our best to stay competitive. As for hiring and what we look for, I suppose it varies really. If we're getting applicants who are fresh out of school, fresh out of the Architectural Technologist program, that's at SAIT and NATE. That's just a 2-year program that a lot of our techs, it's all you need to get into the industry. So if you're coming straight out of school, the biggest thing we look for would be your personality. To be honest, what they teach at SAIT and NATE, and it's the very basic of what you need to know. We can teach much more than they can. I remember when I started, I learned more in my first 6 months than I did in school. Once you start, you get a crash course of the code, the programs you're using, everything. So yeah, the biggest factor would be what your personality is like. Would you fit in our office? We have 50 people here. That's a lot of different personalities. Some people fit, some people don't. So that's what we're looking for as a junior, really, because anything else we can teach. Most offices have their own set of standards and their own way of drawing things and their own way of doing things. So we're not generally concerned with that, because it's actually easier to teach a fresh candidate our standards than to try to rewire them from another office and try to change their minds on how to draw stuff. Because obviously we do it properly and nobody else does. So if you're coming in from another office, that's usually a little different. It's a fairly small community in the grand scheme of things. I know people in 12 different companies who we all started together at my very first firm. So you kind of know most of the people in the industry. So when someone's moving over or changing offices, it's a little easier. If it's a junior who's just looking for something new, sometimes bringing a portfolio is nice. See what you've worked on specifically, see how you solve your problems, your details, how you draw stuff. That's helpful. But again, it comes down to personality, really. We're such a collaborative industry that you have to be able to get along with others. You have to be able to work as a team and take criticism and give criticism and be able to work through different problems with a small or a large group of people. Sometimes problems take 10 people to solve it. Sometimes it's just 2 people sitting down and figuring out how to build it. But you have to be able to work well with others, be lighthearted, be able to take a joke, be able to give a joke. It's personalities always seems to be the biggest thing in this office, in any architectural office. we have an open floor environment, so there's always people talking. There's always people, like, I could walk past somebody's desk, take a glance at what they're looking on. If I notice that they're doing it wrong or doing it a different way, I'll ask, and we'll have a conversation about it. And sometimes that'll bring in two more people, or and then another junior, and everyone just turns into a learning session. So it's having that willingness to always learn. I've been doing it 18 years, and I still will walk by somebody's desk and they'll give me a tip on the program that we're using. Something a tool I've never used in our program. So you're learning every day. It's a really good environment for that. Really stretches your brain on everything. You go home tired just from the mental load of solving everybody else's problems. Yeah, other than that, steps to get into the industry. So I guess as the architectural side of it, you would need a diploma. So that's SATE or NATE and their architectural technologist program. And those would be the closest ones to us. If you wanted to try, there's always, the IT approach. Our office administrator, she is just now starting to like get involved in our meeting minutes and filing stuff. So you can come in as an office administrator, and you'll pick up things here and there, and then we'll even teach you some things. So if you're not looking for the drafting side of it, you just want to be a project manager, you can do that. As a project manager, it's more about how to run a project, and that project can be building a building or building anything. So if you have the skills to be a project manager and you're good at organizing people and organizing time and stuff like that and hitting deadlines, it doesn't necessarily have to be architecture that you specialize in. Project manager can manage any project. So that's another way to get into our industry. If you're not drawing, you can still, we have, well, all our three main project managers, none of them draw. So, and even now, a lot of our architects, none of them know our new program. So they'll hand sketch and give us design options like that, but you can be an architect and not ever really have to draw in the current program. So yeah, there's a lot of different facets you could come into the industry in. There's no wrong way, there's no right way. It's if you want to try something out, give it a go. And from what I've seen, most firms are pretty acceptable in what everybody wants to see everybody grow. So like, yeah, our office admin, we've started giving her stuff that's wasn't even part of her original job description, but she's eager and she wants to learn, so we will support that. Yeah, I don't know. That's most of what I got, I suppose. Could open it up to questions.
Yeah, Steve, I was wondering, you had mentioned the contract administrators. Do they require any sort of special education to get involved, or is that because that's sort of like a niche role that you don't really hear about a lot?
Yeah, most of them historically come from being technologists and just working their way up. But if you can read a set of drawings and you can keep a contractor in line, you can. It's similar to what the project manager does. Our project managers handle more of the contract doc and the drafting side, and our contract administrators take it on afterwards. But I think all of our contract administrators used to be techs who just don't draw anymore. So understanding how a building works is helpful. But you're still managing people. The drawings are already there as long as you can read them. Yeah, you don't have to have a technologist degree to be a CA, I wouldn't think. As long as you can manage time and people and you know what you're looking at, you can learn everything else.
Awesome. At this point, Chloe, Kendra, Leanne, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask them. I have some questions that I can ask too if you need to warm up. And Susanna, you're shaking your head. I think you have some questions too. So at any point, feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and start asking questions. And we've got one here from Chloe. How would you describe your work culture? Do you also support remote work environments for accommodations?
We have a somewhat hybrid because of the collaborative nature of our industry. It's different in different offices, but our office, we like to have people in the office. We do provide, everyone gets 1 day a week that they can work from home. And we are also provide some flexibility to our schedules, but for the majority of the time, we like to keep people in the office just for that collaborative nature. Like I said, if you're walking by somebody's office and somebody's or somebody's desk and somebody's talking about something and you get involved, that's something you're going to miss out being at home. So some of our senior staff, we have let them a little more at home, but if it's a junior, we like them to be in the office just because you're going to learn a lot being exposed to everything around you. I know there are other firms that are full work from home. There are firms that are 50-50. So
Awesome. And what about the work culture part of Chloe's question there?
Our culture is lighthearted. We joke around a lot. Like I said, we work hard, but we play hard. So this specific office, we have a Christmas party. We have a family barbecue that we just had last weekend where we go to one of the partners' houses. The whole family's involved. We take a trip to the mountains every year with the families just to keep the culture of our office close-knit. That was easier back when we were 20. We're up to 50 people now, so it gets a little more intense. But yeah, like I said, I had been to one of the larger firms, and it wasn't the same feel as a smaller firm. I missed the culture of knowing everybody and knowing every project we were working on. I didn't have that at that bigger firm, so it works for some people. Some people love it. But yeah, it wasn't for us, so I left to come back to a smaller one.
Great, thank you. And then Kendra is wondering about employees with disabilities. Do you have any that you know of currently, or if you also want to expand on how your organization gives back to the disabled community as well?
So currently we don't have any, and I'm not sure if that's what this whole thing is supposed to help with. It just lack of knowledge. We did have a partnership with Winifred Stewart. They had a program where we would get people to come in for a day a week for a month or something, and they would help out around the office and do different tasks. I don't think that program's around anymore, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, I think it may just be a lack of knowledge, and whether or not the credentials are there, I guess, would be the biggest thing. But there's other office administrative tasks that would work. As for the community as a whole, like I said, our original, one of the main partners, he was the one who had set up the original thing with Winifred Stewart. We donate a lot to Joy Moss. They are always big sponsors and participants in the Joy Moss Golf Tournament. So we try to get out and do what we can. it's important to my boss. So that's where a lot of this comes from. It's an ironic thing, but the two smaller firms I've been to, neither offices were actually 100% barrier free. So it's a weird thing for an architectural firm not to be, but I think we make it work where we can to help out. But it's one of those shoemaker's sons never had shoes. We have an interesting office, but yeah, it's not really ideal.
Mm-hmm. And being in your office, having the tour that I got when you did come on as a mentorability partner, I know it is very like open office, like you mentioned. So for folks who might come in and require a little bit more like dedicated quiet time or things like that, what sort of accommodations might you put in place?
We do have two office spaces that are they're currently set aside for people, but I'm sure if it was required, we could figure it out. We also have two boardrooms, so our server room where I'm at because we couldn't find a boardroom, but most offices do have smaller, quiet breakout spaces, we would call them, where teams can meet. So every office would have some sort of quiet space that you could get away just by the nature of us having meetings and a lot of them being online now from COVID. It's been a bit of a shift to get more people to have those quiet spaces where they can take a phone call or whatnot out of an open office environment. So
Nice. And then we had another question here from Chloe about being curious about how the architecture industry is using AI right now and how is it adapting to new technology?
um, that's a bit of a loaded question. If you ask an architect, they would not want to use AI. That would make them redundant. Um, some of us technologists have played around with it. Uh, it's good for an initial planning. I think as good as technology gets, it's always going to need that human interaction to finalize and make sure. Even if you use ChatGPT and whatever it writes, you still got to go through and make sure it's saying what you want to say. So the same would be true for a building. I've played around with some of the AI programs where it'll put a door, you'll walk through a bathroom to get to a bedroom. And it has an idea of what it wants to do, but they're always going to need that human touch to finesse it and make it right. For design, we don't use AI. I think for some of our proposals and stuff, it helps just to get the verbiage across. Usually for a proposal for a job, you have to do a 100-page document on your experience in a similar project and your team members and all that. So I think in a situation like that, a ChatGPT might be helpful. But again, you're always going to want that human touch to it. It's you don't get beautiful buildings from a computer, I don't think.
Thank you.
But that's not to say we don't. As a technologist, we like our technology and the different things. We've used from our program because it's all in 3D. We can export it to a 3D program, and we've had the VR goggles that you can put on, and we can give it to clients who can actually walk around their building in 3D space before they even actually put a shovel in the ground. So that becomes really handy because not everyone can see a building in 3D when just from a set of plans. And that's something technologists are pretty good at. And architects, you can visualize a 3D space. So when you have a client or a community engagement where you're talking to parents about a new school, if you can give them the goggles and show them the school in 3D, that really excites them, and that gets people really jacked up about the project. And it's easier to get buy-in from people if they can see something physical before they even start. So that's some of that technology is cool. We've used we have a 3D scanning program where a company will come out and scan an existing building with lasers, and then it'll build a 3D representation. And then you can go back to that original model and have a look. So, and it gets so good that you can zoom into a label and see. So you can scan an entire mechanical room, and if you have to remember, oh, what was that piece of equipment 6 months ago that we ripped out, you can go into this program and see what it was. That's super cool too. So yeah, we're always, as technologists, we're always excited about new advancements and stuff.
Yeah. Leanne, I noticed you had unmuted yourself. Did you want to ask your question or just leave it in the chat? All right, so Leanne's question in the chat was about hiring people with disabilities. I know you'd mentioned that you don't currently have any employees that you know of who have a disability, but what is your hiring process?
So it would start with either you just throw in your resume. When I started, I took a walk around. I first moved to Edmonton downtown. I just walked around, found 3 or 4 different architectural firms and just dropped off a resume. Some called me back, some didn't. So you can still hit the streets. That's always an option still. We have an HR who is currently doing some recruiting for us. And that's just through LinkedIn and headhunting. As long as your LinkedIn is up to date, that's always useful. And then from there, we'll go to an interview. The interview is where we would get our first gauge of your personality. And like I said, that's a lot of it, especially as a new hire into the industry. That's where it comes down to. And I know it's tricky in an interview process because everyone gets a little nervous. Trust me, we're nervous as well. It's always nervous meeting someone new and we're trying to sell you on our office just as much as you're trying to sell yourself to us. So it's everybody's nervous. So it's something you shouldn't try to worry about. Just be yourself. Show us who you are as a person. If you want to be lighthearted and crack a joke, for our office, anyways, that works. That might not work everywhere, but yeah, we look for personality above everything else, especially for a new to the industry hire. It's if you're a pleasure to talk to and get along with, you can go pretty far. That'd be the biggest. Yeah.
When we talk about disability, sometimes people have a very specific image of what disability looks like. At Mentorability, we do take sort of the pan-disability approach. So this means, we include things from developmental disabilities to physical disabilities. We include things like mental illness or, folks who are refugees and dealing with some of that past trauma. So that all sort of falls under our umbrella of disability. Would any of that be a factor in your decision making?
Not particularly, no. I don't see why it would. If you are keen and eager to learn, and I mean, for example, in the example of a refugee, if you have something to bring to the table that, like, we have a very diverse office here, so different inputs from different cultures really helps inform some of our decisions. We were working on a brand new school for the Muslim community. So one of our designers understands that culture, so it helped us inform the design a lot better than just throwing a school together. And our designers and interior designers, they do their research. If it's an indigenous group, we'll research colors and symbolism and stuff like that and try to incorporate that. It's all, when you're designing something for an end user group, you want it to match what they want. So yeah, if in the example of refugees, if you have something to bring some cultural aspect, that's cool. But there would be no, yeah, if you're eager and keen to learn, and there should be no boundaries. Not at our office. It would be.
I think that's a really good point, especially in an architectural firm, having as many different perspectives from a diverse group would be so helpful in your design. Chloe, I know you have another question in here, but first I'm going to invite Susanna because I know she's bursting with a couple of questions.
Yeah, I love this stuff as well. So super curious. I had a question, a couple in around VR, and how you incorporate VR through the iterations of your design improvements. So for instance, if you're walking through something, and trying it out and going, oh, you know what, actually, this needs to get changed before it comes to the client. Is that something that you do?
Probably not so much in VR. Our program is in 3D, and we have renders tools that show it all in 3D. I guess what we're talking about VR, like the goggles specifically, normally we just leave that for client and community engagement for the people who can't visualize it. As techs, we see it in the 3D sheet space, and we can see if there's an issue there. But yeah, we will go through it. Sometimes we'll let our project managers who don't use our program, we'll let them walk through the building and they can point things out. A lot of times it'll be like, oh, why is this mechanical thing running into this wall? What happens on the other side of the wall? So the 3D aspect of it really does inform us. Generally, it is at the technologist level because they're in the drawings every day, they're in the model every day, so they see all these clashes. So it would be them who notices it, hopefully, before it gets to the client. Mm-hmm. There will be times when, yeah, the client will see it and they'll ask a question and we'll have to say, we'll get back to you. But it's the advancements in 3D design have really helped notice that things. Because you'll see things that, I mean, a drawing plan is cut at 4 feet or 5 feet. So you don't necessarily see what's above. So when you model it in 3D and you see what happens when that beam hits that wall and there's a window there, you can see those in 3D before. Traditionally, you would get on site and the contractor would say, what are we going to do about this? You'd be like, you'd have to figure it out on the fly. And that's as the BIM director here, that's my motto for everybody is to don't be a lazy modeler. Mm-hmm. Model it how it would be built so that you can see these issues and you can see these problems before they get to the construction phase, which costs us and the client more money. So if we can figure it out ahead of time. So yeah, the 3D environment has helped a lot with some of those smaller things you wouldn't think about just drawing in 2D. So yeah, it does help design and construction processes. So I mean, the designers, yeah, they're in 3D as well. The ones that are younger designers, they're in 3D. They use the same program, so as they're designing it, they're seeing it in 3D and
that's great. Thank
you. Realizing it in real time.
That's wonderful to hear. My other question has to do a little bit around the role of accessibility in design and how your architecture firm thinks about those things when creating the design. For example, one of the stories you're talking about was with a lab and talking with the lab technicians at a hospital. Did you consider talking with end users such as patients and thinking about their needs within that design?
Yeah, so that specific one was a lab where it would be the text, but yeah, we've done patient rooms, we've done dementia wings in hospitals and stuff, and we talk to not necessarily the patients in those cases, but the doctors and the people who are on that floor. Maybe it's families, maybe it is patients. So we do, on that point, yes. In the point of accessibility, it's a major focus nowadays in the industry. There's even, which is another, I forget her name, but she's local, and her only job is to consult on accessibility. So she will take a look at our plans. She will tell us if we have enough space in our washrooms. Well, if we have enough space for our ramps, if our ramps are drawn wrong. We are very mindful of that. We currently have a school going in that I helped on their bleacher design. It was a whole center courtyard space inside with bleachers going up both sides, stairs up part of it, and ramps up and down. So there was no level that wasn't accessible. And we spent weeks trying to design this thing to be able to have, well, it was a 3-tier thing where people could sit and congregate. The students could sit and congregate, and we made sure that there was at least access to every single level, whether it was left or right or top and bottom. There was a way that there would be no barriers. So our firm takes that. We take a lot of control in that. We will design everything we can to make sure it's accessible to everyone. But yeah, there's consulting companies. This lady, that's her only job. An architectural firm would hire her, or a client would hire her. She would go through and make sure it's like, with us designing schools, it's the number one thing people ask for, especially with the washrooms even. Rather than male female washrooms, we have gone to a gang of individual washrooms with accessible washrooms and barrier-free washrooms. There was a pool in a small community that we pushed for a family change room or an inclusive change room rather than traditional male-female change room. They ended up not going with it, but that was our incentive, was to push them to go for that inclusive change room and it's just a different mindset. And not all clients are there yet. Not all communities are there yet, but we find that it's our job to push those matters anyways. Whether or not they want to do it or proceed with it, we're always providing that option. If not anything else other than to make people think about it. So
that's really good to hear. And maybe we can, after the meeting, get the name of that consultant so that we can include it in our sort of like post-session email to folks who might be interested in learning about that.
Yeah, she might be somebody who could have a talk.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get to Chloe's question because it seems like a really good one. So she's looking for some insight into the architecture firm job market situation for junior designers. And would you use 3D modeling tools such as AutoCAD and Blender primarily?
Okay, so first question, the job market. We're having a tough time finding people. We're not necessarily looking for juniors though, so we just hired 2 juniors. But I think if you're willing to go and travel to the different places, whether they're close or not, just get out there and have a look. Again, LinkedIn is really good. A lot of companies or even employees will say whether or not they're hiring. It's a big industry, but it's a small industry. So I don't know what the market is for juniors currently. I know Nate just got out, so there's always that influx of juniors every year. We had some summer students who one just went back, so we're hoping that he'll come back to us when he's done his 2 years. So there's always that. Year 1s and year 2s get a work week or summer internship, so that helps you get your foot in the door, so you have somewhere to land when that class of 100 techs come out. You have somewhere to go already. So if you can get in there early, that helps. Another event that we went to was I'll have to get the name of that for you as well, Jamie. It was an event that we went to. It was basically a giant job fair at the Expo Center. It was kids from all over the school, and we were in one section for the architectural section. But just going to those job fairs and talking to the people there, Like I know three people from my office went specifically to do the judging of the architectural portion. They have a competition. So we went and we talked to some of those kids and said, here's our card. When you're done your program, come see us. So just get out there. Job fairs are really good for that. It was Skills Alberta, I think, was the architectural portion. Yeah. So the program we use is called Revit. It is an Autodesk product. It's a step up from AutoCAD. I'd say it's a big leap up from AutoCAD. So AutoCAD is to hand drafting, like that big of a jump from hand drafting to AutoCAD. That's what Revit is to AutoCAD. So Revit's the main 3D tool we use. Most firms use it now. There are still some using CAD, but it is starting to fall to the wayside. Blender, not so much, depending on your kind of what you're designing, I suppose. We have been looking at playing with Twinmotion and Lumion, which are 3D render programs. If you can build a building in Blender, that's amazing. I would love to see that, just because I know Blender is a crazy learning curve of a tool. So that's impressive if you can use Blender. But anything you can show off in the interview process, that would be helpful. I know AutoCAD doesn't. Go ahead.
Sorry, Steve, would it be beneficial for folks who are current students to be thinking about like building that portfolio now? Like if they do a class project using Blender or something like that, or just playing around and say like, this is something a future employer might want to see.
If it's something you're playing around with, yes, I think that would be a better, because everybody coming out of school has the same house that they drew. They have the same office building that they drew. But if you have something different, something that puts you apart from everybody else, that would be useful. Yeah, like we've seen the same portfolio from 7 different people showing the same small house that they did in year 1 and the same office building they did in year 2. So, but if you have something in SketchUp that you made just on your own free time, or Blender, or like I use Revit for 3D printing. So if you have another modeling program that you use for that sort of stuff will help put you apart from the rest of the group. So that's always cool to see. That extra level of initiative would be a plus for sure.
That's great advice. Thank you. And Chloe had asked another question, if it's typically quite competitive to secure positions. So I know you talked a little bit about you're not quite sure what the junior developer positions are like or technician positions are like, but can you say a few words about maybe the architecture industry in general right now?
In general, I think everybody is super busy. So as long as offices have the capacity, I mean, the issue we're having currently is we don't have the space. We have redesigned our office to get as much space without people feeling cramped. So that's our biggest hurdle right now, is we have a lot of work, but we have no space for extra people. But if the offices have space, from everyone I've talked to, friends and colleagues, everybody's busy. So I'd say it shouldn't be an issue, but you never know. You never know until you get out there. I remember when I first walked around and I handed out those resumes, I had somebody call me and ask me if I knew Revit, which when I got out of school, they weren't even teaching Revit yet. It's the industry standard now, but this was 18 years ago. The company asked me if I knew it, and I panicked. I thought I just got out of school and I don't even know the program that they're using. But then the second company that called me, they just wanted to have a chat, and I went in and interviewed, and we didn't even open my portfolio. I had a huge 24 by 36 portfolio with large scale drawings, and we didn't even open it. But I was hired there, and I've been, I mean, the one principal at that office is who I followed here. So you never know. First phone call, I thought I was doomed. The second phone call, I've been with this same architect for 18 years. So you just got to get out there. You never know. Answer every phone call, knock on every door.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, and Chloe, Leanne, Susanna, for asking such great questions. This has been very eye-opening for me, who knows nothing about architecture, and hopefully informative for everyone else who is here as well. So yeah, I just want to give a great big thanks to everyone for participating.